Hi, today we're taking a look at solving quadratic equations using square roots. Now, if we take a generic number, let's say we just pick 5, we happen to square it, we know we should get 25. If we take the negative of that number, say negative 5, and we square it, once again we get a positive 25. So, if we were given an equation then that x squared equals 25, to undo the square, we do the opposite operation or take the square root. The question becomes, is the answer supposed to be a positive 5 or a negative 5? Well, depending on what you've been taught as far as factoring goes, one thing we could do is we could subtract the 25 from both sides. So we get x squared minus 25 equals 0. You might then recognize this is a difference of squares, so we can factor this into x minus 5 and x plus 5. We would then set each part equal to 0 and solve. So when we go back over to the x squared equals 25 and we took the square roots, we would find out that it's not just positive 5 or the negative 5, but it's got to be both. So to handle that, we put a plus or minus in front of the answer. So let's take a look at the examples from our notes. For number 5, we got n squared equals 9. Since the variable is being squared, to undo the square, we take the square root of both sides. We were just talking about the fact whenever we take the square root, we're going to put in a plus or minus. Square root of 9 in this case is 3. So our two answers are n equals a positive 3 and n equals a negative 3. For number 6, once again, we got x squared equals 100. So to undo the square, we do the inverse operation. We take the square root. Square root of x squared is x. We remember the plus or minus. And in this case, square root of 100 will be 10. As we move on to 7 and 8, we may notice that in these cases, the variable that's squared is not all by itself on one side of the equation. So our first step will be to get the variable squared by itself. In the case of number 7, we got k squared plus 5, so to get rid of the plus 5, we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. 54 minus 5 should give us 49. Now we can take the square root to undo the square. So we would get k, we remember our plus or minus, and in this case, the square root of 49 would be 7. For number 8, this time we got negative 6a squared, so it's negative 6 times a squared. So to get rid of the negative 6 and get the variable by itself, we're going to divide by negative 6. That would leave us a squared on the left. Negative 96 divided by negative 6 turns out to be 16, which works out real nice. We take the square root to undo the square, and we get a equals, remember our plus or minus, and the square root of 16 will be 4. Now 9 and 10 actually take a couple steps to get done. So we follow similar procedures. In this case, we're going to subtract the 4 from both sides first for number 9. The 40 minus 4 will give us 36. We're then going to divide both sides by the 49 to get the variable by itself. Now, since the 36 and 49 do not divide evenly, we're going to leave it alone. To undo the square on the x, we take the square root of both sides. So the square root of the x squared will give us the x. We know we've been putting in the plus or minus. Now, as far as the fraction goes, we do each part individually. So the square root of 36 should just be 6. The square root of the 49 will be 7. So for number 9, the answers are both positive 6/7 and negative 6/7. If we look at number 10 then, similar procedures. We want to get rid of the plus 2 first, so we're going to subtract that from both sides. So we'll have 81x squared equals 9. Once again, we want the variable by itself, so we're going to divide by 81. This will leave us x squared equals, and then now you've got a couple options. We can simplify here. 9 over 81 would simplify to 1/9. That's probably the easiest way to do it. If we take the square root now, we got the x. Square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 9 is 3. Now, just in case you may not have thought to simplify the 9 over 81. So let's say we just had x squared equals 9 over 81. Once again, we would have taken the square root of both sides. We would have gotten the x and the plus or minus. Square root of 9 would have been 3. Square root of 81 would have been 9. Hopefully at this point then you would have seen that 3 over 9 would simplify to give us 1/3. So either way, the answer turns out to be the same thing. As far as our last two problems go, we start in similar fashion. So to get rid of minus 10, we're going to add 10 to both sides. So 5b squared will equal to 225. Divide by 5. We get b squared equals 45. At this point, we take the square root of both sides. So we're going to get b equals the plus or minus. Now the trick is to break down the 45. 45 is 9 times 5. 9 breaks down into 3 times 3. So depending on how you've been taught to do these, got a pair of 3s, that would go outside. The leftover 5 goes back inside the square root. So in this case, the answers are plus or minus 3 square roots of 5. Last one, number 12. We add 2 to both sides. This gives us 6p squared equals 84. We would divide by 6 to get that p squared by itself. We take the square root of both sides to undo the p squared. So we get p equals plus or minus. And then if you look at it, if you think about 14, it breaks down to 2 and 7. No pairs of anything, so it just remains the square root of 14. So for number 12, the answer is p equals plus or minus the square root of 14. I hope this helps. Good luck.